No one saw the fear until it was too late. The Greyhound Terminal in downtown Atlanta at 2 a.m. is a graveyard of dreams, fluorescent lights humming over sticky linoleum, the air thick with exhaust and stale coffee. Most of the stragglers, the weary travelers, the street people, the grizzled bus drivers, try hard not to see each other. They're a community of avoiders. That is, until they see Jaden. Jaden is maybe 9 years old, small for his age, with a perpetually worried face and a pristine, ironed shirt that looks alien against the grid of the station. He's Asian American, but his look is universal, an unaccompanied child who knows he shouldn't be alone. He sits on a molded plastic chair, perfectly still, his small frame dwarfed by the empty seat beside him. His focus is entirely on a lunchbox resting on his knees, an old, metal model with faded pictures of a cartoon rocket ship. He clutches it like a life raft, his knuckles white. The silence around him is not peace, it's a tense, coiled spring. The man across from him, a biker in a tattered leather vest named Marcus, shifts uncomfortably. Marcus has seen a lot of things in a lot of terminals, but a kid this small, this late, this quiet, is wrong. The boy's stillness is a scream the adults are just starting to hear. He looks up suddenly, his wide, dark eyes locking onto Marcus, who feels a cold, heavy lump settle in his stomach. The stillness breaks. Jaden doesn't move or cry, but his mouth opens just enough to let out a breathy, single word that cuts through the hum of the terminal. Marcus, all hardened edges and indifferent tattoos, is frozen. He glances at the few other souls scattered around, an overworked cleaner pushing a mop, a couple of young soldiers waiting for a delayed connection, and an elderly woman asleep on her suitcase. None of them seem to have registered the boy yet, or maybe they're just veterans of turning away. The contrast between Jaden's absolute vulnerability and the terminal's cynical, transient nature is jarring. The fluorescent light catches the tear tracks dried on the boy's cheeks, visible only because he's so close. Marcus, despite his initial instinct to walk away, finds his feet moving toward the boy, the sound of his heavy boots echoing off the vast, empty ceiling. As he gets closer, he notices a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor running through Jaden's legs. This isn't just a lost child, this is a child in terror. Jaden shrinks deeper into his seat as Marcus approaches, his grip on the lunchbox tightening to an impossible degree. Marcus kneels down, his enormous frame folding awkwardly. He tries a soft tone, one he hasn't used since he was a kid himself. "Hey, little man. What's your name? Where's your mom or dad?" Jaden doesn't answer. He just shakes his head once, a tiny, frantic motion, and pushes the lunchbox further into his chest. His eyes dart nervously toward the main entrance, a place where people arrive, where trouble could walk in at any second. The anxiety is a palpable field around him, a silent alarm that finally starts to prick the attention of the others. The cleaning woman pauses her mop, and one of the soldiers, Sergeant Chloe, looks over, her training immediately recognizing a point of distress in an otherwise mundane environment. The initial strangeness has morphed into a collective, uncomfortable certainty, something is profoundly wrong. Jaden, prompted again by Chloe's calm, measured voice, she's a natural soldier, her presence immediately commanding, finally whispers. "I can't stay here." "They know." Chloe sits in the seat next to him, gently placing her large military backpack on the ground. "Who knows, sweetie? Tell me who you mean." Jaden's breath hitches. He looks from Chloe's earnest face to Marcus's gruff but attentive one. He knows, instinctively, that these are the people who stop to look. He slowly opens the clasps of the old rocket ship lunchbox. The small, metallic click sounds enormous in the silence. It isn't full of food. Nestled inside is a thick wad of bills, mostly crumpled 20s and 50s, a huge, impossible amount for a child. On top of the money is a small, worn photograph of Jaden and a woman who looks like his mother, her face partially obscured by a dark, jagged tear down the middle of the picture. But the most alarming thing is a single, official-looking document folded neatly beside the cash. Chloe carefully extracts the paper, her eyes scanning the printed text. It's a formal notice of eviction from a cheap, run-down apartment complex, but highlighted in bright yellow are the words, "Due to repeated violations of domestic violence restraining order," and a name, M.R. Chen. Jaden's story spills out in short, terrified bursts. He's not my dad. He took my mom's money. He said I was worthless and he was going to take the rest of it and leave me at a shelter, but my mom told me to run. She said, take the lunchbox and don't stop walking. He points to the photograph. He ripped her picture so I'd forget her. The money, it's all she saved. For my school. The gravity of the situation slams into the small group. This isn't a run-of-the-mill runaway, this is a child fugitive, carrying his mother's desperate life savings and fleeing a proven threat. The lunchbox is no longer a symbolic object, it's a desperate, tangible testament to a life-or-death decision made by his mother. The money isn't just money, it's a burden of impossible hope, a promise Jaden is trying to keep. Before anyone can process the weight of the story or the cash, the air changes. A black, beat-up sedan, the kind with tinted windows and a cracked tail light, rolls slowly past the bus lane outside. It idles for a moment, the sound of the engine a low, predatory growl. It's too slow, too purposeful. It's looking for someone. Jaden's eyes, fixed on the car's reflection in the glass, are wide with renewed panic. That's him, he mouths, not daring to make a sound. The car. He always uses that car. Marcus, whose life has been a long series of avoiding trouble, is suddenly wired. He doesn't need to ask who him is. The man on the eviction notice, the abuser who tore a family photograph, Mr. Chin is here, or someone working for him is. The group's immediate, temporary safety is shattered. Chloe, already on her feet, barks a command with military efficiency. We move. Now. Marcus, take the boy. Go for the back exit toward the loading docks. If they see us, they'll see the uniform. Marcus hesitates for a split second, the instinct to bolt is overwhelming, but the sight of the boy clutching that cartoon lunchbox overrides everything. He nods, a muscle twitching in his jaw. The two soldiers with Chloe, a towering man named Kane and a quiet woman named Maria, immediately take up defensive positions, scanning the terminal like a hostile environment. The threat escalates further. A heavy-set man in a rumpled suit, clearly a hired heavy, detaches himself from the sedan and strides toward the terminal entrance, his eyes coldly sweeping the waiting area. He's not subtle. He's confident. He knows the kid is scared and alone. The small, accidental group, a biker, a sergeant, and two private soldiers, now has to make an immediate, impossible choice, turn the blind eye they were practicing 10 minutes ago, or risk everything for a child they don't know. The weight of the moment is a physical pressure. Marcus scoops Jaden into his arms, the boy surprisingly light, but his small body is rigid with fear. Hold on tight, kid, Marcus growls, and starts moving toward the shadows of the maintenance corridor. The man in the suit is halfway to them, his walk deliberate and menacing. The air crackles with impending violence. The heavy man, whose name is Ray, is upon them faster than they expected, cutting off Marcus's path to the emergency exit. He's large, with a blank, cruel face. He doesn't look at Marcus, his eyes are locked on Jaden and the metal lunchbox. Little squirt. Give it up and nobody gets hurt, Ray sneers, reaching out a meaty hand. Marcus shoves Jaden behind his back, adrenaline surging. He's a brawler, not a soldier, but his movements are fast. He tries to push past, but Ray blocks the path. The confrontation is immediate, ugly, and tight, a desperate, close-quarters shove and grapple. Ray is stronger, Marcus is quicker. They collide with a sickening thump against a stack of luggage carts. Chloe, Kane, and Maria close in, forming a triangle of defense. Chloe's voice is the only cool element in the chaos. Police are on their way. Back down now. Ray laughs, a harsh, dry sound. No, they're not. Just the four of you. And you got a choice to make, Sergeant. A court-martial for interfering with a private matter, or a clear path home. That's when Jaden acts. Pushed to the breaking point, he slips out from behind Marcus, and with a surprising surge of desperate courage, he throws the entire metal lunchbox with all his might. It doesn't hit Ray, but it clatters loudly off a nearby metal trash can, making a startling, ringing noise that echoes through the cavernous terminal. The noise is a signal. It draws attention. Ray flinches, momentarily distracted by the sound and the fear that it will bring actual police. In that split second, Marcus sees his opening. He delivers a brutally efficient headbutt, years of street fighting compacted into one blow. Ray stumbles back, momentarily stunned. Chloe and Kane move in with textbook precision, subduing the heavy man, pinning him to the ground just as the sound of distant, but real, sirens begins to wail from the street outside. Jaden didn't just make noise, he bought them the time the soldiers needed for their earlier, silent call. The tension resolves in a burst of contained violence, quickly subdued. The threat is neutralized, not by an epic battle, but by a child's quick, fearful act of courage and the coordinated response of strangers. Ray is cuffed by local police who arrive on the scene, called in by a cryptic text from Chloe moments before the clash. The black sedan speeds away, its occupants having cut their losses the moment the siren sounded. The immediate threat is gone. The cash, scattered on the floor from the impact of the lunchbox, is quickly collected by Marcus and handed over to Chloe, who carefully places it in a clear evidence bag, sealing the mother's savings as a key piece of evidence. Jaden is safe, physically, but he's utterly depleted, leaning against Marcus's denim-clad leg. Now the dust settles, a cold new reality descends. The police are sympathetic, the terminal staff is offering lukewarm water, but the core issue remains. A kind police officer gently asks, "We'll get into Child Protective Services for a safe placement, son. They'll find a nice foster family." The statement is meant to be reassuring, but it lands with a sickening thud. Jaden looks up at Marcus and Chloe, his eyes still shining with terror. He remembers his mother's frantic, final instruction, trust no one in a uniform. The system, the very thing meant to protect him, is a labyrinth of strangers and uncertainty. The victory against Ray was only the end of the first battle. The war is far from over, and the new problem is institutional, a child with no legal guardian, a stack of money his mother risked everything for, and a government agency about to take custody and place him in a stranger's house. Jaden grabs Marcus's hand, a desperate, final plea. "Don't let them take me. Please. Don't let them." The sight of Jaden's desperate grip shatters any remaining reserve the group had. Marcus, who usually ran from commitment, finds himself speaking before he can stop himself. "No. He stays with us." Chloe, surprised but understanding the depth of the moment, backs him up instantly. "We were all witnesses. We're taking him to a safe, private place tonight. We'll contact legal aid and figure out the system before we turn him over to it." The police, recognizing the seriousness of the situation and the reputation of the Army sergeant, agree to a temporary, unofficial grace period until morning, provided they handle the paperwork. The improbable group becomes a makeshift family unit. Marcus, Chloe, Kane, and Maria retreat to a cheap motel room with Jaden. It's a chaotic scene. Chloe, the sergeant, is coordinating a network of lawyers through her phone. Kane, the quiet giant, is surprisingly good at finding a suitable pair of pajamas and children's socks at an all-night pharmacy, and Maria, the medic, is quietly checking Jaden for any signs of abuse while distracting him with a story. Marcus, the biker, finds himself sitting on the edge of the bed, showing Jaden how to properly count the crumpled bills from the lunchbox. The transformation is immediate and wrenching. The trauma, Jaden can't sleep. He wakes up screaming from nightmares of the man in the sedan. Chloe holds him, not like a soldier, but like an exhausted, empathetic mother, letting him cry into her shoulder, her calm voice a steady anchor. The affection, Marcus, who never learned to cook anything but instant ramen, fumbles his way through making a scrambled egg and toast, the simple act of care a monument in his life. Jaden gives him a small, shy smile, the first real smile the group has seen. The adaptation, Kane sets up a small camp on the floor, leaving a stuffed animal he won in a carnival years ago on Jaden's pillow, a worn tiger. The motel room, initially a tense, cold place, is slowly filled with the uncomfortable, hesitant, but undeniable warmth of a fledgling family. They are all dealing with their own pasts, Marcus's troubled childhood, Chloe's guilt over her deployments, but they are finding a profound, unexpected healing in the simple act of protecting this child. They are a collection of broken parts assembling into a stronger, whole shield. The next day, the institutional wheels begin to turn. The group finds themselves in a sterile, intimidating office across from Judge Armstrong, a meticulous, weary woman who has seen every kind of story. Opposing them is Ms. Davis, a sharp, professional social worker whose job is to advocate for Jaden's legal, structured safety. The tension is palpable, true-life drama versus bureaucratic necessity. Ms. Davis presents her case. Mr. Miller, you have an extensive record of minor offenses. You are not a blood relation, have no steady income, and reside in what appears to be a transient lifestyle. Sergeant, your deployment schedule is unstable. This child needs stability, a vetted foster home, not a rotating cast of strangers, however well-meaning. His safety is paramount. She looks directly at Marcus. Your appearance is, frankly, intimidating to a child with a history of trauma. The debate is raw and moral. Marcus speaks, his voice thick with emotion but clear. I look like a bad guy, yeah. I know it. But I'm the one who didn't drive away. This kid's mom saved that money for his education, his future. If he goes into the system, that money gets tied up, lost in a fund. His life is paused. We're not perfect, but we're present. We fought for him when the system didn't even know he existed. Chloe lays out their plan, a community-funded defense, a stable, temporary lease they've already secured near the military base, and a rotating schedule to ensure one of them is always with Jaden. The moral debate is powerful. Which is the truer love, the guaranteed, cold safety of the system, or the risky, committed loyalty of this unlikely family? Finally, Judge Armstrong turns to Jaden, seated quietly in his small suit, still clutching the lunchbox. Jaden, you need to tell me. Where do you want to go? Jaden looks at the stern judge, then to the waiting social worker, and finally, his gaze settles on the worried, genuine faces of Marcus, Chloe, Kane, and Maria. His voice, which was a terrified whisper just hours ago, is now small but firm. The testimony is decisive. He reaches into the lunchbox, past the cash, and pulls out the folded, torn photograph of his mother. He hands it to the judge. My mom said that family is who stops to help when no one else is looking, he says. They stopped. He points to the lunchbox. The money is for school. They said they would keep their promise to my mom. Judge Armstrong sits in silence for a long moment, the torn photograph of a hopeful mother in her hand, the quiet resolve of a young boy hanging in the air. She looks at the evidence, the military code of honor standing beside the rough, unflinching loyalty of the biker. She sees not a legal argument, but a family fighting for its right to be born. Her decision is swift, but weighted with emotion. I am granting temporary, supervised joint guardianship to Sergeant Chloe Hayes and Mr. Marcus Miller, with mandatory weekly check-ins by Ms. Davis. The condition is stark: the team must prove a stable environment within 6 months, or the custody is revoked. The custody is not a gift, it is a chance, a test of their transformation. Relief washes over the small group like a tidal wave. Marcus lets out a ragged, silent breath, and Chloe closes her eyes, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Outside the courthouse, the tension breaks. The 4 improbable guardians surround Jaden, a non-conventional family cemented by crisis. Jaden, for the first time, lets go of the empty metal lunchbox. He looks at it, a simple object that carried the weight of his mother's last hope, and then, he looks up at the faces of the people who chose him. He doesn't need to hold the box anymore. The promise is now held in their hands. The catharsis is a collective exhale, the fight with the system is won, and the journey as a family has begun. 2 years later. The scene is a small, sunlit community center. The terminal, the violence, the court, are distant memories. Marcus and Chloe, now married, their shared sense of purpose a stronger bond than any legal contract, stand in front of a banner that reads, The Rocket Ship Foundation. Jaden, now 11, stands beside them, taller, smiling easily, a confident, bright kid wearing a soccer jersey. He's a thriving student in a local magnet school, his mother's savings having paid for his tuition, a promise kept. The group changed. Marcus traded his biker jacket for a work shirt, now running a small, successful auto repair business, employing at-risk youth. Chloe retired from the Army, realizing her true mission was closer to home, and works as a veterans family counselor. Kane and Maria, honorably discharged, are now regulars, uncles and aunts in Jaden's life. The Rocket Ship Foundation is their way of paying it forward. It's a non-profit that uses Marcus's shop as a base, providing safe, temporary shelter, legal aid, and life skills training for other vulnerable families in transition, those who are too broken to trust the standard system. The irony is not lost on them. The lunchbox that held money now inspires the network that gives families a fresh start. They kept the old metal lunchbox, giving it pride of place in their living room, a permanent reminder of the day they became a family. Jaden takes the stage, holding a microphone that is still slightly too big for him. He looks out at the faces, former clients, friends, and the original team, and smiles. The rocket ship, he says, pointing to the foundation's logo, is a good idea. Because it shows you don't have to stay stuck on the ground. You can take the parts you have, even the broken ones, and you can build a new way to fly. The final shot is of the foundation's new logo, a simple, graphic image of a rocket ship, its fiery exhaust a bright, inspiring arc. Beneath it, a single, powerful line summarizes their lesson, their movement, and their life: hope isn't found. It's built, one fierce heart at a time.